Hey guys, so my sister and I just got through watching the new Game of Thrones episode today, and I thought I would do a video about my thoughts and kind of like a review, I guess, on the episode. Fans are calling this episode, episode 4, the best episode of Game of Thrones so far, and I completely agree. It was intense. We've been noticing throughout this new season, season 7, that every episode is like includes like a boss fight, so to speak. And usually in Game of Thrones, like the episode right before the finale is the one where the huge boss battle happens. But this season, there's been like a huge battle in every episode, and it's like they're gearing and getting more and more intense, and pitting characters against one another and giving us all kinds of reunions and crossovers and character introductions, and it's, oh my gosh, it's just fantastic. So, I don't do my reviews in order, by the way. I just go as I remember the episode. But Jon Snow and Daenerys, as everyone knows. By the way, spoilers ahead. So if you haven't seen the episode, if you don't care about spoilers, that's fine. But if you don't want to know what happens, then don't listen to the rest of this video, because I'm including a lot of spoilers. But anyways, so Jon Snow and Daenerys are definitely, they've been introduced, and he's in the north. They're kind of at a stalemate right now. Daenerys wants him to bend the knee, and Jon's being stubborn and doesn't want to do that, but he needs her help, which I can totally see both sides of things. But he takes her into this cave and he shows them these paintings from the children and the first men, and shows them how they a painting of how they fought the White Walkers together and put aside their differences, and he uses that to try to convince her to join him, and she says that she will. So my heart as a fan leaps like, yes, finally, she's going to help him defeat the White Walkers. And then she says, if you bend the knee. And Jon Snow, he explains to her that the people in the north won't ever do that and stuff like that. So that's still pretty much a stalemate. They get interrupted by news from the of her latest loss at how they took over Highgarden, but basically the army took or they took over Castle Black, but her army took over Castle Black, and the Lannister army took over Highgarden, and so now the last of her allies has been destroyed, basically. So she confronts Tyrion and kind of gets a little aggravated because his strategies haven't worked, and that's really a sad moment, and I feel terrible for Tyrion. But she asks Jon Snow for advice, and Jon tells her, hey, if you lay waste to the cities and burn them to the ground, you're no better than anybody else, and your people won't follow you anymore, basically, which is true. So we jump to, at some point we go to Cersei's perspective, which is typical, and the army basically, with Jaime and the lead, they leave Highgarden. They have all of Highgarden's riches, which is how she plans to pay back the Iron Bank. And so it shows Jaime talking about that, and him and Bronn, their banter, which is, interesting. Bronn demanding that, he pay him with the castle, and, Jaime telling him, hey, after the war's over, so it doesn't get taken right back. Then we go to Cersei and the Iron Bank, and the guy compliments her and basically says that the Iron Bank's going to be behind her as long as she, when the gold actually arrives. So then Arya comes into Winterfell. She enters the gates, her and these guards kind of have, like, the guards won't let her in, they don't believe her, and, she's typical Arya, and she kind of, sneaks past them and gets away anyway. And they draw it out so much where she goes inside the gates, they tell her to stay put while they go get Sansa, and then she sits there and stares, and, they pan around the whole thing. And, I mean, the freaking writers and directors and stuff torture us with this, because I'm like, Arya just needs to reunite with Sansa so bad, and then they draw it out for, like, ever. But, when the guards tell or Sansa about it, and like, hey, we lost your sister, she says, I know where she's at. So they reunite over Ned's statue, and they compliment, they hug and stuff and talk about how it doesn't look like him, and they have a really cool reuniting moment, but it's kind of bittersweet at the same time, because you realize that both girls are completely different and changed and not who they used to be. So then they go out and they see Bran, who is, of course, still going crazy and basically not Bran anymore. And they all three reunite, but again, you kind of understand that, okay, these children are not who they used to be, which is great character development, but it's still really bittersweet. So at some point, Bran and that one girl, I can't remember her name, but she's leaving. Her brother died for him and stuff, and she kind of confronts him because all he has to say is thanks. And he mentions that he's not Bran anymore, and that he remembers being Bran, but he's not Bran, and it's really sad. And I mean, I wasn't really into his character from the beginning, but I mean, at least I liked him, and now he's just completely different, and I don't know where that storyline is going. I mean, I don't know where anything's going, but it's just really sad. And so we go to Jon Snow and Davos talking to Missandei, and they get some background information from her, and they actually start this really nice conversation, which randomly gets interrupted by the Greyjoy ship. I totally forgot that, it was Theon until he shows up on shore and him and Jon Snow stare at each other, and I'm like, oh my god, this scene took me by complete surprise. I mean, with all the crossovers and everything, you think it wouldn't be that surprising, but I mean, Jon staring at Theon, knowing everything that Theon's done, and just Theon kind of staring at Jon, not knowing what to do, and Jon darts over to him, and I'm like, okay, is he gonna kill him, and he doesn't have a sword, so I mean, he can't kill him, but he's probably, could beat him up and everything, and he grabs his collar and like, the only reason why I haven't killed you is because I know what you did for Sansa, and, basically Theon saved Sansa, and Jon Snow's kind of repaying that. So that was definitely one of the interesting reuniting scenes, I think, outside of, of course, Arya coming back to Winterfell and the Stark children, the last living Stark children outside of Jon Snow or whatever, reuniting and everything. So it was definitely an episode full of surprises. The major surprise is at the end we see Jon Snow mentions that Daenerys is actually gone, and we jump to the Lannister army, and they hear this sound in the distance like thunder, and they're all rushing to get around, and they're kind of spread really thin right now, and you look, it shows the soldiers, and I'm thinking, yeah, they don't have enough men. Not that I'm for the Lannisters. I really want Jaime and Bronn to live, and those are like the only two that I really care about for the Lannisters, so... And then you see the entire Dothraki horde charging toward them, screaming wildly, everything else. There's a huge, intense battle. And then Daenerys comes riding in on Drogon, and they burn the army to a crisp. They just burn. And then Jaime and Bronn are like rushing around, and Jaime tells Bronn to go to the giant crossbow that Cersei, that her Qyburn or whatever that guy's name is, the maester, made to take down Cersei's dragons. So Bronn rushes around. He fights Dothraki really good. I mean, he's in his element, but at the same time, he's not, because there's like dragons and like, the way that they reacted and then the expressions that they had, you could tell that they really did a good job expressing that dragons were myth until this moment for everybody, especially the Southerners. And so Bronn goes to the crossbow, and he fires a couple shots and finally shoots Drogon, and he falls, and it's this epic, terrible, terrible, heart-wrenching moment when you see Drogon and Daenerys just falling out of the sky. Tyrion and the other Dothraki are watching on a hill in the distance, and, they show Tyrion kind of looking and seeing his father's army kind of go to destruction, and it makes me feel really bad for Tyrion because he has to see this happen, but at the same time, he's, doing the right thing. And anyways, Daenerys falls, and it's just terrible, and she's trying to get the thing out of Drogon's shoulder and everything. Well, Drogon burned the crossbow and kicked it to the ground, and I'm like, yes, but I was worried about Bronn. But I mean, if it's between Bronn and Drogon, I'm like, I'd kind of rather Drogon live, so I was glad he burned the big giant crossbow to the ground. And then Jaime is sitting there on a horse staring at Daenerys, and then Tyrion's like, don't do it, you idiot, don't do it, and I'm like, don't do it, you idiot. And then Jaime charges straight for Daenerys and Drogon. So I'm thinking, oh my god, this is terrible. And Drogon rears up his head and burns, and fire just lunges straight at Jaime, and then all of a sudden Jaime gets hit aside and he falls into the nearby water. And so we're assuming it was Bronn that actually knocked Jaime aside, and Jaime starts falling in the water, and then the episode just ends. And Jaime's thinking, I don't know if he's gonna drown. I feel like, if you guys want my opinion, that, I mean, if they're gonna kill off a character, it's gonna be... Obviously, they've killed off characters before that haven't, that we feel still felt like had storylines to go and everything, but usually character deaths are more dramatic and drawn out, and I feel like if Jaime just randomly started drowning, that wouldn't be as drawn out as it could be. So, I mean, he could get taken prisoner, and Tyrion could advise Daenerys of that. He could just get totally forgotten about, and Daenerys kind of leaves, and then he gets found later, or he could escape. I mean, I don't know what's gonna happen, and the Game of Thrones directors and stuff, they might end up killing him off, and I really don't want him to die. It's going to be terrible. But I seriously think that this episode was, I mean, one of the best episodes they've had, the best episode they've had of Game of Thrones yet. And they're doing a great job of building up and making it climax. And you can really feel that the show is coming to an end, even though there's like, you know, a season and a half left. And all the crossovers and the characters meeting. And now, I mean, we're getting to less and less, you know, people. And, you know, there's going to be favorite characters against favorite characters. Like, you know, Jaime, I didn't want him to die, but I'm totally for Daenerys and her dragons. And it's terrible. And I hope Jon Snow bends the knee, but at the same time I can understand why he wouldn't, because the Southern men, it's not like they're going to march south and you know, start fighting another war again and, you know, stuff like that when the real war is to the north. But at the same time, it's not like Daenerys is just going to give up on Cersei for a myth that nobody believes in. So either they're just going to keep fighting Cersei until the White Walkers come, or I don't know. But I'm super, super excited, and I can't wait for next week's episode. So thank you guys for listening to this review, and leave your thoughts in the comments and stuff. Thank you so much.